Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to This and That Reviews, where I love to do the thing that no other movie reviewer, YouTuber likes to do, which is compare movies to other movies. That is how my brain works whenever I watch movies, and so if you like a different take on reviews for movies, consider subscribing and liking and commenting and whatever. So this is Final Destination Bloodlines. And I'm gonna compare this to John Wick, Wicked, and probably the other Final Destination movies as well. I meant to check, I know that this film is much longer than the other ones. I don't know by how much, but it's definitely a longer film, and it doesn't need to be. I think that that's my first criticism about this movie, is that it feels like it's trying to be the Rise of Skywalker. There's a deep cut. It feels like a deep cut now, because the last time a Star Wars movie was in theaters. This feels like it's trying to be the Rise of Skywalker, encompassing the Skywalker trilogy. It feels like it's trying to connect all the movies in a specific way, and it tries to, and it's longer. But when I got out of the theater, I was like, I know this movie is longer than every other movie, but I don't know why. I feel like it has the same amount of kill sequences as any other of the movies, but it's a much longer movie and it feels much longer. And I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing. When you think of like John Wick 5, when John Wick 5 came out and we knew that that was going to be a 3-hour action movie, which sounds insane, you go into that 3-hour action movie and it feels like an epic 3-hour action movie. Like, there is so much, like, the amount of time that they spend in that Japanese setting is insane. And even as it's happening, you're like, oh my God, the sequence is still going. But like, that is what you go to the movie for. And I feel like this movie could have had like, I think it has 6 different like sequences, and it could have had like 8 different sequences or 10 different sequences, and we wouldn't have like complained about that, because it would have felt like an epic movie, because that is what we are going to this movie for. We're not going to the Final Destination movies caring about the characters. At best, you're gonna care about the main character, the main character that has the premonition, the obvious main character. And at best, you're gonna care about that person, but literally everybody else, you're just waiting for them to die in cool ways. And so, like, I feel like this movie had no reason for it to be as long as it was. If you're looking for, like, the short version of, like, my thoughts on this movie, I think it's okay. I think if you liked the other Final Destination movies, you're gonna watch this one anyway, because it's just the next one. And that is who I am in this series. It's become one of those series, like John Wick, like Saw, and like this. That no matter how bad it gets, I'm not saying that any of those series are bad. Like, I Saw is pretty bad. John Wick seems to be like getting better and better and better as it keeps going. But even like in Saw, I guess it would be the easiest comparison. It's one of those franchises where it does one thing. Like, Saw does one thing. John Wick does one thing. Final Destination does one thing. And it does it well. It does it, and I like it. And even if it gets bad, in the case of Saw, like, no matter how bad it gets, like, I will still watch the next one. Like, I could come out of like a bad version of this franchise, and if they announced another one today and they said, oh yeah, next year, Final Destination 6, is it 7 now? I think it would be 7. I think there were 4 is the one that everybody hated. 5 was good. This is 6. Yeah, the next one would be 7. If they announced 7 right now, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm going. I'm gonna go see that like as soon as it comes out. So excited. And that's what this franchise is to me. And if that's what this franchise is to you, then yeah, you're probably gonna go watch this and you're probably gonna think it's okay. If you're not sold on the Final Destination movies, this is not gonna sell you. If you were not sold on, the Final Destination 5, you're not gonna be sold on this one. I think 5, like, the thing about the Final Destination movies is that even if you don't remember everything about the movie, if it has a remarkable part, if it has that thing, right? If it has the Final Destination 5 ending, right? If it has the Final Destination 4 mid-premonition, right? I think I might be alone on that one, but I was wondering why everybody apparently hates Final Destination 4 as their least favorite thing. But I liked that mid-premonition moment. Like, that was the thing that sold that movie for me. Final Destination 5 is sold by the ending. Like, you might not remember anything else that happens in that movie, but you remember the ending. And you can look back on that entire movie and be like, oh yeah, that was such a cool movie because of that ending. It's kind of like Up. A lot of people like to point to Up. Here we go. This is how my reviews work. A lot of people like to look at Up, the Pixar movie Up, and they like to say, "Oh my God, that movie is so good! Like that opening sequence, it made me cry. Like it's so powerful, and like it's just the best sequence in like a cartoon movie ever. Up is such a great movie." But if you ask people who the bad guy is in that movie, they will not be able to tell you, because nobody remembers anything else that happened after that sequence. But that sequence is so powerful that it would color in the rest of the movie. It's so good that it makes everything else not really matter in your brain, right? The moment for this movie doesn't exist. I created it. And this is how I'm going to relate this to Wicked. When I go watch a movie, if I have the ability to create something missing, like if there is something that I just didn't like, or if like I didn't like the ending, or if I didn't like how the beginning played out, right? If I didn't like a specific moment in the movie, right? And I'm just like, if you just did this thing instead, like it would have been so good. And I'll give you another example, because this is what I do. This is how I review movies. I review movies by comparing them to other movies. I'm 2 levels deep in my Inception pool here. Escape Room. The opening to Escape Room is them showing you a character, their death, right? That's the opening. And then it goes like, and then the character dies, and then it goes Escape Room, title sequence, right? And then it starts the movie. And it's to show you that, you know, this is the movie that you're coming into. It's a character in an escape room, and then all of a sudden the walls start closing in, and then like, you know, and then it goes Escape Room, right? It's to set the tone. That character is in the movie. So you know from that character survives until that moment. So anytime this is assuming that you didn't even see a trailer for this movie. You now know that character is going to survive at least until that moment. And it releases all tension that you could potentially have for that character. Now, I understand that they need to do that to set the tone, but you could have literally had anything. It could have been anything. It could have been a different person in that exact same scenario. It could have been somebody who fails that challenge in the exact same room. Then when you see that room later in the movie, you're like, oh, this is that room. This is the thing from the beginning. That's so crazy, right? Then that becomes a twist. And I would have changed that. I would have just been like, don't just either cut it out or just move that, or just change the character, or do something else to showcase that this is what your movie is, if that's what your point is, right? I look at movies, and if I feel like I could make a better thing than what was given, and if I feel like, hey, like, why didn't you pay this off from the beginning, or why didn't you do this instead? Why didn't you set this moment up better? Or why didn't you have this character say this instead of this? If I start to feel like I'm smarter than the movie, that's when my train of thought starts to become like, you know, like this movie could have been good. And I'll give you an example, and I'll go one level back up, and this is Wicked. When I was watching Wicked, I had no preconceived notions for Wicked, right? I couldn't remember them. I saw the play twice and couldn't remember it. I got out of Wicked and was like, I will never forget this movie for the rest of my life. This movie is so good. And the moment that I realized that it was so good was when Elphaba when she's falling. And there didn't need to be anything in this sequence. This is This is mid Defying Gravity, right? I'm already crying in this theater, right? That Defying Gravity is happening. All of the things that are happening, all of the things that have led up to that scene, right? And when she's falling, that didn't need to be anything. She could have literally just grabbed the broom, still would have been super powerful. And they did the reflection of her as a child. And that was the moment that I realized that this is such a good movie. Because that's something that plussed the movie that didn't need to be plussed, and it made the scene better, and I didn't even think of it. I didn't even think about, I wasn't in that moment being like, what could make the scene even better than it already is? It was already great. It was already amazing. The movie was already amazing, and they plussed the movie, right? I have a real problem with the ending to this movie. And like I said, if you like the Final Destination franchise, go watch it. You're gonna have an okay time. You're gonna have an okay time to a great time. That seems to be like the general consensus. It's a good movie. It's fine. It's a fine, Final Destination movie in the same way that all Saw movies are a fine Saw movie. Maybe it's the worst of the Saw movies to you, maybe it's the best of the Saw movies to you, but you're still gonna watch it. Just go watch it, right? But I am gonna spoil the ending and what I thought it should have been. Because the ending to this movie frustrated the fuck out of me. When I realized, and this is my spoiler warning if that wasn't clear. When I realized that they were going to when their plan is to go back to the grandma's cabin, and I'm glad that a character in the movie voiced it, was like, and then what? Are we just gonna live there forever? What was their plan? And their plan was, we are gonna stay there until the end of this movie. That was their plan. They had no bigger plan beyond that. They were like, well, there's 20 minutes left in this movie. We're gonna stay there for 20 minutes and then the movie will end and it doesn't matter because the movie will be over. That was their plan. Because none of that makes sense. The idea of we'll just go to her cabin is safe, and then what? And then just stay there forever? And then just never leave the cabin? That's your plan? That's not a plan. We need a final set piece for this movie, and we don't know where to go, right? When I realized that we were already at that point of the movie, I was very underwhelmed by this movie. I think in the trailers, they show 3 of the 6 set pieces. They show the sky view, the big set piece in the beginning. They showed the entire teaser trailer was the tattoo parlor scene, and that was like an entire thing. That was just that entire scene. So when that entire scene played out, I just went on my phone, and I always sit in the back of the theater, and I make sure that nobody is next to me or something. And there was not a lot of people in this theater anyway. But I just went on my phone, and I was like, well, I have like 5 minutes to kill. And then they also showed the barbecue. They showed the barbecue scene. And if you were really paying attention to trailers, they also showed the train. If you also, just deep dived into a bunch of trailers, they also showed the train. That was the exact ending. When when I got to that moment in the movie where they're going to the cabin, I was like, so they didn't show the MRI and they didn't show the trash compactor. I thought the trash compactor was really fun. I thought that was really fun. Like, that was a really fun subversion, right? And so then they're at the end sequence. That's very obviously the end sequence. And then they go into the epilogue, right? Where all of these have an epilogue. And here's my frustration. Here's my main frustration, and how I thought that they could have done this so well to where this could have been on the upper, Mount Rushmore of Final Destination twists that, that could have been. The twist that could have been. The brother is talking about how he's going to prom the entire time, or not the entire time, but there's the sequence. There's a very oh, I didn't know you were a junior lifeguard. And then the other girl comes in and is like, oh, so when is prom? When are you going to take her to prom? Right? That's a big thing. That's a big thing that they set up. In the same way that it's a big thing that they set up that in Final Destination 5, that he wants to go to France and that he wants to, study abroad. And, it's to set up the idea that he's on Flight 180. That if you wanted to connect that, you could have connected that to Flight 180. And that's what makes it such a good twist. Because you're like, oh my God, he said that the entire time. He's been talking about studying abroad. He's been talking about going to France, right? And then they pay that off. I love movies where there's setup and there's payoff. And the other thing that they drop is that the sky view that, is the opening thing. It's oh, they shut it down and they were going to repair it, but then they never did. And they just left it, right? This kid is talking about going to prom. The beginning was prom. They talk about the thing that they never reopened. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? Are you seeing where I'm going with this? The main girl never tells anybody that the main premonition was about the sky view and prom. And, or not prom, but I mean where they all dress fancy, right? How insane would that have been if the brother is finally going to prom and they don't set up they don't set up the whole what's it called the thing where he says you didn't resuscitate, you just resuscitated her, she never died because her heart never stopped. What if they're on a bus or whatever, and they get to the newly reopened sky view, and everybody doesn't understand and thinks that she's crazy, and even the brother that survived this whole thing is no, you're insane. You can't keep thinking like mom. You can't keep thinking like Grandma Iris, right? Death is not just gonna keep, we beat death. It's fine. We've been surviving. Death has not come for us because we beat it, right? And so she understands that her entire premonition was not just because of the connection to Iris, but it was her own premonition that was eventually going to happen to her. And so they go to the newly reopened the sky view, or whatever the thing was called, right? The newly reopened thing. And that's where his prom is. And they go up and it's the same thing. There's a band that's doing Shout. It's and she's the only person that understands that it's totally gonna happen. And then it happens. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how great of an ending that would be? It would have put this movie on the Mount Rushmore of best versions of a Final Destination movie. It's 1, 5, and 6. It would, if they had that as an ending, if that was the ending, what did they decide to do? I don't know, some train derails and they decided to do a callback to Final Destination 2 with the logs because it's a meme. I feel like that's the reason why they did that. Not because it's clever, but because it's a meme. They even had the log truck in the middle of the movie. And they're like, oh, it's a meme. Like, everybody hates the log truck. So we're going to have logs crush them. And you're going to see logs again. I was so mad. When I came up with that on the drive back, thinking about how like meaningless that ending was, I was like, what could they have done? And I was like, oh my God, why didn't they do that? How is that not the ending? How is the reopened, Titanic 2? How is the reopened Skyview like his prom? And like, she can't get away. Like, like the brother's like, no, you gotta come, come on, it'll be fun. It's fine. Stop worrying about death, and then the whole time she's like, we have to get out of here. And she can't convince anybody. And sadly, that's not the ending. And so that's how I feel about this movie. Like as a closer, when Iris dies and they have the funeral, and then the dad dies and then they have the funeral, I was like, oh, they better keep doing this because this is hilarious. I would love if this is what just keeps happening. Like somebody new dies and then it hard cuts to the funeral. Like if they just kept doing that. Because something that I hate in these kinds of movies, in like slasher movies as well, like a big pet peeve of mine is when movies have characters that completely you get to see that character being murdered right in front of like a brother or a sister or a mom, right? And then it hard cuts to them just being like normal and being like, all right, guys, what should we do now? And they're just like, they're completely unfazed that like their brother or their friend or their mom just died. And it just like hard cuts to them like instead of right here, they're now like, all right, guys, what should we do? Where to next? That happens so much in this movie. Where like, they just don't care. Where it just cuts to a different part of where they actually are. Like one of the big ones is when two of their friends die at the hospital and it cuts to them outside and they're like, all right, guys, we should go to the cabin. I was just like, what is happening? Come on, Final Destination 8.